All right, here we go. Looks like we're live. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is so good to be back for today's Taco Bell Tuesday stream on June the 30th. So July right around the corner. So I'll just hit you with, because I'm not going to be here for it, happy pre-Independence Day. Thank you so much for swinging by if you are. If you're new to the channel, first off, I would like to quickly plug myself, so please drop a like down below if you like One Piece or the One Piece card game, or just in general you like the kind of style that I do things here. That would help me out a ton. And then while you're at that, you can hit the subscribe button because it's free, and it also helps me out a ton as well, even more than liking. And if you hit that notification bell, you'll see any time that I go live or any time that I put up a new post or video, anything of that sort. Last but not least, you can share with your friends. You can drop a chat right now while we're live, or you can leave a comment in the comment section of any of my videos, preferably my most recent, and I will be able to see that and get back to you as soon as possible. But I'm so glad to see you guys here today. Today I am doing another One Piece trading card game video, and it's going to be a little bit different than my usual ones where I break down meta leaders and then we go into like market watches and I just look at random deck lists. Today I'm going to be talking about two leaders in particular that I have had my eyes on for a while in the OP16 meta. I've been testing around and I've been really enjoying them. Now I will say, caveat, neither of these two for me feels quite as comfortable as my favorite deck being Red Black Sabo. Red Black Sabo for me, I think, is just a leader that will always feel comfortable and has a very strong matchup into a lot of decks. The only issue with that deck is it does not have great results, in my opinion, because people aren't giving it the time of day, at least the good players, to really push and see how far it can go, and also because it is one of those decks that you have to know thoroughly in and out both what you and your opponent are trying to do in order to successfully battle into a lot of the newer leaders that are a little bit more power crept. That being said, I do still think Red Black Sabo is probably my favorite comfort pick deck. Anytime that I want to go somewhere and compete, I will usually pick him over even a new meta leader that has come out, just because that's what I feel most comfortable with. But that being said, there are two leaders in OP16 that I have been having a lot of fun with and I think are worth giving a shot. Now, I will say neither of these leaders is exactly that affordable at the moment if you are on more of a budget. But that being said, I will also discuss some alternatives that you can use your budget for. But with that being said, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So what we are looking at today is, if you saw the thumbnail, going to be Red Shanks and Black Yellow Teach. Now, I'm going to start off with Red Shanks, but I want to say that I was never originally going to build any of the OP16 leaders outside of Buggy, you know, just for fun. But Teach is my favorite character in the anime, in the manga, right, in the franchise, and he has been ever since his reveal in Impel Down, or I should say his return as a character in Impel Down. So he's been my favorite character forever. OP09 Teach is one of my favorite leaders of all time. I know a lot of people hate that leader, but I do think it's just a leader that requires both players to be very knowledgeable of what the other deck does, so it's a great skill check. You miss your mom, Tony? I'm sorry. I don't know where she went or if that's just a joke, but if it's not a joke, I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, Black Teach is one of my favorite leaders of all time, and so when Black Yellow Teach got announced, I just had this feeling that I was going to build it. And so the way that I ended up building the deck was I just had a bunch of extra yellow cards from having about 2 boxes worth of the new set, and I was like, I'm just going to throw together all of my leftover yellow stuff and build the deck just as a casual funsies deck. And I had everything except the secret teaches, so at this point I just went ahead and built it. But we're going to start off with another deck that one of you guys commented on one of my more recent videos talking about, and that's going to be Red Shanks from OP09. So OP09, one of my favorite sets of all time, again, brought me Black Teach, brought us Black Purple Luffy, right? A lot of really cool leaders. This one, on release, was pretty strong and almost immediately fell off. And that's going to be Red Shanks, just because he didn't have amazing cards to support him, and also his leader effect was very underwhelming, right? So he's a 5 life, 5,000 power mono red leader with the 4 Emperors and Red-Haired Pirates type, and once per turn you can give an opponent's leader or character minus 1,000 power for the turn, but you can only activate this effect when your opponent attacks, right? So it effectively just gives you a free 1k every turn, which, considering there's leaders that literally let you search the top 5 every turn for free in Blue Purple Luffy, or in the in the case of blue-red ace, let you trash a card to make any card in your hand a 2k effectively. This leader's effect was quickly underwhelming in power, and I think the new Newgate is even crazier in that it lets you trash a card to give you plus 4k to your leader or character. But this leader recently got a new card in OP16 that has put it back on the map in a competitive aspect, and that is going to be the new 5-cost Ben Beckman here. So OP16, number 12, he's a 5-cost 6,000 power blocker with 1k counter, and he says, on play you can rest one of your Dawn cards, and if your leader has the Red Hair Pirates type, and you have 10 Dawn cards on your field, you can play a Shanks from your hand. And so one of the strong suits of this deck is the fact that it has a lot of really strong 10 costs, and in this case 9 costs, but 10 cost Shankses like this KO Shanks here from OP06, or the 10 cost SR Rush Shanks from OP09. But the issue with the deck was that you would play those out, use your entire turn, and then if you didn't already have a board, you were just kind of a sitting duck. And so a lot of times you'd have to spend your 10 Dawn turn trying to get some bodies to stick before you could play them out. Well, now, with this Ben Beckman, not only do you have 4 extra Dawn to use to play out maybe a blocker Shanks or a Lucky Roo or something of that nature, but it gives you a blocker as well as that Shanks already, and a pretty significant blocker at 6k. So with this card, I think it does put Shanks in a pretty decent, I would say like a good tier 2, maybe tier 1.5 spot. This is another one of those decks, though, that if you think, oh, it's easy red deck, I'm just going to grab this, play my guys on curve, and have a good time, you might have some struggles. I think that this deck requires a lot of matchup knowledge about what your opponent's doing in order to effectively plan out what characters you play out and when. But let's go ahead and get into this deck list, because I realize it's probably not too similar to a lot of other top deck lists. And we'll look at some top deck lists after this to see what they're having success with. But to start us off, we have 4 1-cost Uta Searchers. So this one is just on play. Look at the top 5 for a red-haired pirate. Just a great character to play out, right? Especially with decks like NL and Goofy running around. You want smaller bodies to be able to trade into your opponent's Mr. 2s, Mr. 1s, or Ohms and things of that nature. But just a great top 5 searcher for our red-haired pirate stuff. Helps us sculpt our hand early. Next, for our 1-cost, we have 2 Building Snakes. I did decide to put 2 of these in over 4 Ace, Sabo, and Luffy's because this one is searchable off of Uta, and it gives a minus 3k to that character, which is pretty significant with some of the cards we'll discuss later. Next, we do have 2 of the Ace, Sabo, and Luffy 2ks. Not searchable, but just an absolutely amazing card, right? Also giving minus 3k to a character, but costing an extra Dawn, but that's fine, and it is a 2k as well, so it gives us a lot of counter in our deck that we need. Next, I am running 2 of the new Rockstar 2k. If your red-haired pirate's character would be KO'd once per turn, you can trash a character card with 6k power or more from your hand instead. So just a way to try and... For me, I was originally running this at 4, and then I cut it down to 2, even though it reduces my number of searchable 2ks, just because this is only really good in longer grindy matchups or maybe against Lucy, right? There's not a ton of KO removal that's super great right now, and so Rockstar himself is just not amazing in my opinion, but it's any KO, so if you're playing against a deck like Lucy that's trying to minus your board and then swing into it, what you could potentially do, right, is you could play out your character, and then instead of holding them back so they can't swing over, you can actually swing that character at them, and if they hit you with a Sabo into Fire Fist, if you have your Rockstar developed here, you can actually use him to protect your guy from dying to that battle. So that's the only really, like, interesting use that I found for the Rockstar. Kind of niche, so I cut it down to 2. Next, we have 4 of the 3-cost Hongo. Just another searchable 2k. Gives something minus 2, and it rests itself, so unless you're playing against NL, pretty good chump blocker because your opponent doesn't want to leave a debuffer on the board. That's going to be our another one of our 2ks, and then I'll go over our last 2k right now. It's going to be Uta. So it's a 6-cost 4k 2k counter blocker that says if you have a character with 10k power or more, give it minus 4 costs in your hand. So a 2-cost blocker, pretty decent, and a 6-cost as well on the board is going to be amazing to help keep it around. Yeah, and it's a 2k counter at worst, right? So really good if we manage to establish one of our Shankses on the board, as we can play this out for just 2 and have a blocker. All right, now getting into the mid-range area of the deck, I have 2 of the OP09 Lucky Roos on KO. If you have the red-haired pirate's leader type, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with an original power of 6k or less. That's amazing, right? Original power, so it's still good into things such as red, green, Luffy, and Ace. Really good into things like NL to kill their holies or any of their little guys. It's great into blue, green, Luffy. anything of that nature. And it's a blocker, so if your opponent swings at any point, you can just try and block with this and kill their guy. Next, I am running 3 of the 4-cost Brick Shanks, the 4 Emperor's Red Hair Pirates one. So it's a 4-cost 6k blocker that on your opponent's attack once per turn lets you trash any card to give an opponent's leader or character minus 2k for the whole turn. So not only is this making any card in your hand into a 2k, but potentially if your opponent's playing a lot of restand things, such as the Green Zoro leader or the Blue-Green Luffy with the restand event, this actually debuffs them for the whole turn, just like your leader does, so it can actually get more mileage there. But just a great 4-cost searchable blocker that we can play out in the middle of the game or even late game, along with a Ben Beckman to make a crazy board. Next, we get into some of the tech cards here for Kobe. So this is a Navy Sword character, 4-cost 5k character. He has 1k counter, which is great. And he says on your opponent's turn, if your leader's Navy type, he gets 1,000 power. Doesn't happen for us, right? We're not a Navy leader. But he also says when attacking, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3k base power or less. So you cannot, minus power and then remove a middle character. It doesn't work like that. But he says then if you have 6 or less cards in your hand, you draw 1 card. And I love this card because one of the issues that I've had with Shanks, and one of the reasons why I didn't build him when he originally came out, was because I didn't like the consistency issues that the deck had, right? I mean, it has a searcher event, it has the Uta searchers, but other than that, it just kind of bricks. And especially if you're trying to run tech cards to upgrade the deck's base engine, which of course we are doing. So because of that, I really like Kobe because it lets us keep refilling our hand, especially into more aggressive matchups where we're going to have to be pitching counter in addition to using leader effect. And this card gets amazing mileage into decks like NL because they are forced to KO the Kobe with their events instead of your other characters that matter more. Otherwise, this will just clean out all of their little bodies every turn, and they will only be able to resolve things like maybe a Senor Pink or their 6-cost NLs, and we have answers for everything else in their deck besides the 6-cost NLs. So this Kobe just gets amazing mileage. Also great into Blue-Green Luffy, right? Being able to clear out their Mr. 2s, Mr. 1s, their Mr. 3s, right? The green ones, just any of their little guys. So this card just gets amazing mileage in the meta right now. Even good into yellow Blackbeard, right? You can swing into their leader and then use his when attacking before their leader effect goes off to KO their little bodies so that they can't get the value off of them and redirect into them. So still just a really amazing card. I bumped this up from 2 to 4 because I think this drawing a card every turn in a deck like this where you're already getting a free 1k gets a lot more mileage than people will give you credit for. Now, unfortunately, this does die, again, to things like Purple NL because they can rest it and swing into it, into things like Lucy because they can bottom deck it easily. So it's not usable in every matchup, but in the matchups where you can, or if you play it at a opportune time where you have more important targets for them to remove, this card can sometimes just win you games off of a single swing and draw. So that is the Kobe tech card. Now we get into 2 of the PRB2 Lucky Roo. So this is another blocker. It only has 2k power, so it does die to NL. But on play, you can trash a character card with the power of 6k more from your hand to draw 2. So just a great way for us to cycle out maybe like a Brick Shanks or one of these bigger bodies that we might not need for that matchup to just kind of see new cards in our hand. A really good card. I included this at 2 with the other Lucky Roo just because I think, again, drawing our cards so we can find our tech options or just filter our hand is very valuable. Now we get into a little bit of the higher end cards. So Ben Beckman, you're always playing this card on your 10 Dawn turn. I have never once played this before then, even if I'm getting rushed down, because the value of getting out a blocker plus a Shanks is too great for me to ever justify playing this out as a body on board. So we have 4 of these, of course, right, where it lets us play out any of our Shankses. Even this blocker Shanks here, if you really need to be defensive, you can go Ben Beckman into a blocker Shanks and then play out either a Lucky Roo or another of the blocker Shankses and just get out 3 blockers in one turn. Pretty crazy board you can make there. Next, we get into our other amazing tech card. In my opinion, that's going to be 3 Trafalgar Laws from PRB2. So this is an amazing SR. It's a 6/7. So, get your hand motions out the way. But it has 1k counter, which is amazing for the effects that this card has. So once per turn, if this character will be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you can give this character minus 2k power for the turn instead. So really good against decks like Lucy if this card is standing straight up, because they can't just go Fire Fist plus the other Fire Fist, right? To remove this, you can just give it minus 2k. So they have to waste at least 2 events on this card to get rid of it, unless it's already sideways. And when attacking, you can give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2k power during this turn. So just a phenomenal card for removal. It lets you remove with your KO Shanks any 12k on the board. If you swing your Law, you give it minus 2. and then you can play your Shanks. That 12k character is at 10k, so you can KO it with your KO Shanks. So literally letting you remove anything in the game besides Goldie Roger himself. Insane abilities here with this Trafalgar Law. And it's a 6-cost, 7,000 power character, so your opponent having to attack into this actually buffs your leader because they're not swinging at a 5k leader, they're swinging at a 7k character. Really, really good stuff here. I would like to try and bump this to 4 at some point, but right now I think the list is pretty tight, and I'm running this as it is. With the 4 Kobes and the 2 Lucky Roos, you are pretty usually able to draw into at least one of these when you want to see them. Now we have 7-cost Ben Beckman. This is a classic from OP09. This has always been running the deck. I only have 3 of them because I do think that removal isn't as amazing right now into decks like NL specifically, as a lot of people give them credit for, but this says you can trash an opponent's character with a power of 6k or less. So again, with the Trafalgar Law, right, we're able to remove an 8,000 power character. If you establish something like a Building Snake or an Ace, Sabo, and Luffy, you can remove a 9k character, so potentially getting rid of that 7-cost green Boa Hancock from OP16, right? The unblockable one is a play that you could do there. But having 1k counter, having a 7k body, and only costing 7 is really nice. If it costed 6 and you could pair it with something like the blocker Shanks here or a Lucky Roo, it would be insane. But just a really solid card all around here. 1 second. Now we get into our Shanks' package, and I think the buff Shanks is the most important card. The only reason why we're not running 7-cost Zora, by the way, in this deck, because I don't think Character Rush is as important as being able to play out a 6-cost, 10,000 power character that buffs your leader plus 2k. So for those of you who aren't familiar, if your opponent has a character with 8k base power or more, you can give this card in your hand minus 3 cost, so it only costs 6k if your opponent has played out any significant bodies, right? So into NL, into Green Blue Luffy, if they play out their Boa, into Yamato, right? All these decks that have big bodies, even Teach, you can play this out, buff your leader, and have a giant character. So again, on play, if your leader is Red Hair or Uta, your leader gains plus 2k till the end of your opponent's next end phase. So really, really strong option here for our Shanks. And this is another body that we can play out off of Ben Beckman as well if you don't have our other options, though I do think our other options are markedly better. Now we'll get into the 10-cost package. Of course, we're running the KO Shanks. I only run 3 because I do think that the buff your leader effect is just more important in a deck that gets free 1Ks than KOing your opponent's characters, because again, KO package isn't the best these days. But we have 3 of the KO Shanks, 10 cost 12k for Emperor's character. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 10k power less on play. Simple but effective. This card is an absolute behemoth, able to make you trade really well in the late game with your tempo, and especially well if you establish it off of a Ben Beckman, because you get a blocker with 6k, you get a 12k, and they lose a big character. So a huge swinging card right here, tempo-wise. Next, we run 3 of the Rush Shanks. I was actually running this at 2 for the longest time, but I bumped it back up to 3 just because I always want to have a card to play off of Ben Beckman, and every once in a while, I was kind of wanting the minus 1k for decks, right, like the Green Blue Luffy, for decks like the Rosinante, even, just things that swarm the board pretty quickly, things like NL even. Being able to play one of these out to buff your leader to 7k, and then especially once you can go the next turn, if this survives, to play out the 9-cost buff Shanks, unbelievably strong to make your leader tanky. And of course, having a rush body is really good in this meta to help you close out a game before your opponent can manage to claw their way out of your late game onslaught. And finally, my favorite card that I have teched into this deck, the 1 copy of our new promo 97 for Emperor's Shanks. So this is a 10 cost 12k character that on play and when attacking, your opponent cannot activate any blocker effects during this turn. Very, very strong card. This is how you beat the Lucy matchup, right? You play one of these out, and all of a sudden, all of their Sabos say 7 cost 9k vanilla. Really strong into that, really strong into Rosinante, strong into Yamato if they play out some of their blockers to try and tank up, good into Nami if they're playing Newgates, just really solid to help you clean out any of these decks that play out a lot of annoying blockers to try and survive. And of course, you can play this off of your Ben Beckman, so, you know, play this out for 6 Dawn and get a blocker of your own, play out another blocker, play out some removal pieces here to set up, play out 2 Utas. You get the picture. It's a pretty insane card that can really throw off some of these more stabilizing deck strategies. Also great into BY Teach because you can play this out and stop their 10 cost Teach on the board. Now, it will probably get negated on that next turn from their following 10 cost blocker Teach, but Again, just a great on play to help close out a game against them if they are not paying attention. So this is my list for red Shanks. My main goals with this list was to have a decent amount of counter in the deck as opposed to bricks, as you do have to play a lot of bricks with this Shanks package already. And I mean, just taking a quick count, we have 2 building snake bricks, 3 Shankses puts us at 5 there, and then we have 4 here, puts us at 9, 12, 15, 16 bricks. So I managed to cut the bricks all the way down to 16, which is not that many. So I'm really happy about that brick count. And we have 12 2Ks, which is awesome. So a lot of people do think that Shanks is a pretty bricked up deck. And with things like the Kobe, with things like this Lucky Roo able to unbrick our hand, help us cycle around here, and things like this Shanks to give us free 2Ks, I've managed to find a list where that is often not the case. Now, I will say this is probably not the strongest deck in OP16. In fact, it definitely isn't. But it does have pretty decent matchups into things like Blue-Yellow Nami if you play it right. You can do okay into Yamato, being able to trash a lot of their characters that have good on-KOs. You have great matchups into Black-Yellow Teach, in my opinion. You have good matchups into things like Lucy if you play it right, another very skillful matchup. But this deck, again, very skill intensive and very matchup intensive. But I think this deck has a lot of potential, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. Now, unfortunately, again, like I said, it is not that cheap, even though it's not that crazy good, right? This promo Shanks here being honestly just a Roger replacement in Engine. Roger being almost $40 a copy. This Shanks here is actually, I believe, $25 last I checked. And then these 3 laws will run you, I think, upwards of $40. And these Kobe's are, I think, around the same ballpark. So a lot of these cards are pretty expensive. I think these Utas are about 12 bucks a copy as well. Kind of crazy pricing here. Ace Sabo and Luffy's, I want to say, are about $1 a piece as well. So not the cheapest deck list, actually, all things considered, but I really enjoy this. So if you like playing Control, if you like playing a little bit of a bruiser deck, and if you like playing red, I really like Red Shanks right now as one of the decks that I've been playing with and having a good time with. Now, to get into the second leader that I was talking about, I ended up building BY Teach. And I know a lot of people are going, oh great, I roll, yellow slop, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that this deck, if you are used to playing against Blue-Yellow Namis, if you're used to playing against things like Boa, this deck doesn't play like any other yellow deck in the format right now. This deck, in my opinion, plays a lot closer to the original OP09 Black Teach. And so because of that, I've used a lot of my experience from playing that through all of OP9 through 11 and put it into building this deck. And so I think you'll see a lot of choices here that you wouldn't see in most other Black-Yellow Teach lists. With that being said, let's get into it so I can explain it. So for those of you who don't know, this is a new leader. OP16 Black-Yellow Teach is going to have 5,000 power and 4 life. On your opponent's turn, all of your characters get +1 cost. Kind of a shoe-in, but it's really nice. For some reasons that I'll get into in a moment. But the main effect that we really care about here with this deck is on your opponent's attack, once per turn you can trash a card with trigger from your hand and change the target of that attack to this leader or to one of your Blackbeard Pirates type characters. Now, a lot of people, when they saw this released or this leader revealed, were thinking to themselves that this was like a worse version of Dofi. Now, they were excited because of this card right here being a menace in OP09 Teach, but they weren't sure how the cards would work because you have to trash a card from your hand, which is way different than just returning a Dawn. Well, a lot of these cards here will replace themselves, and so how you end up playing is you just ignore the entirety of the early game and try to develop and sculpt your hand and maybe 1 or 2 bodies at most, and then late game you just start slamming down big bodies and close out the game with your insane control. So getting into the deck list here, I'm going to go over our 2K choices first, followed by our low bodies and then our end game. So starting out with our 2Ks, we have 3 of the Doc Q. So this is a 1 cost 0 power 2K counter character. On KO, if your leader has a Blackbeard Pirates type, draw a card and KO up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less, and a trigger to activate that on KO. So just an insanely good card here for specifically NL, but it also works pretty well into Blue-Green Luffy to clean up their Luffys. Can work into Rosinante if they're trying to pressure you with their 1 cost, right? Anything that has a lot of searchers, this card is going to be great into, but especially killer into NL. Just a really solid card, and it lets you draw a card, so it replaces itself in your hand. Next, we have or sorry, we're doing 2Ks. Yeah, so next we have 4 baby 5s. If your leader is multicolored, draw 2 cards on trigger, and other than that, it's just a 4/5 with 2K counter. This is here specifically for and only for that trigger, right? Both because we can use that trigger to trash this card from our hand using leader effect and redirect, or because we can set it up into our life and draw 2 cards. Drawing 2 cards off a trigger is always a great feeling. So we run 4 of this card. Not searchable, right? It's a Don Quixote card, but I think it's perfectly valid to run in the deck. And our final 2K is going to be for Katarina Devon. So this is a 4-cost, 3,000 power Blackbeard Pirates and Impel Down character that says, when attacking, select up to one of your opponent's characters, and this character's base power becomes the same as the selected character's power during this turn. So really, really strong purple Bond Clay-esque effect here that lets you late game slap one of these down for 4 along with maybe a blocker or something else of that nature, another 4-cost or mid-range body, and just establish a huge attacking threat for your opponents if they're playing a deck like Nami, right? Establishing things like Newgates or 8-cost Teaches, anything of that nature, right? Just becomes a huge attacking threat. So that's going to be our 2Ks. Now we'll get into the small boys package. So this deck runs a lot of 1-cost characters because you can use them as chump blockers with your leader to redirect into. So the first one is going to be a card from OP9. If any of you played during that time, you'll be very familiar with it, and that is the Blackbeard Pirates Lafitte Searcher. So a 1-cost, 1K character with 1K counter, just a lot of 1s across the board there. Has activate main, you can rest this character and one of your Dawn cards. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, get a Blackbeard Pirates card, put it in your hand, and put the rest on the bottom in any order. Very good for multiple reasons. Obviously, it's going to be like your green Bonnie searchers, right? So it's going to replace itself in your hand. But more importantly, being able to filter the top 5 is important because stacking the bottom of your deck in this deck can be very good, especially if you can chain multiples of these Lafitte's together, because you can actually set up your late game draws if you are good enough. So any of those of you that know about Blue Nami and how that deck used to play, they would order the bottom of their deck so that in the end game, they knew what they were going to draw off of their cards that drew cards. So Lafitte is going to be good for multiple reasons just like that. And it's a chump blocker, which in a deck where we're trying to survive to the late game and ignore the early game, chump blockers are going to be very important. Our next 1-cost is going to be 2 Van Augur. Very good card. I would consider running 3 of this, but as of right now, I just haven't been able to find the space for it personally. This is a 1-cost 2K character with 1K counter that says on your opponent's turn when it is KO'd, so specifically your opponent's turn, you can give, if your leader's Blackbeard Pirates, you can draw a card and give up to one of your opponent's leader characters minus 3K for the entire turn. So this card here is a great defensive option, either if you're triggering it or if you are drawing it, or excuse me, redirecting into it as the trigger does the on KO. Because it's going to give your opponent's leader character minus 3K for the turn, so it can let you counter out of other swings or make them easier to counter out of. And of course, drawing a card lets it replace itself in your hand. So just a really strong option here. Again, I would like to run 3 or 4, but unfortunately, we cannot find a space for that right now. Our next 1-cost is going to be Vasco Shot, another one of my favorite cards in this deck. So a 1-cost 2K character with 1K counter. On KO, you get to draw a card and rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less. Insane value here, especially into things like blue-green Luffy or these decks that play more medium blockers, even being able to rest down things like the red Uta in Red Shanks, right? So just a really strong card to redirect into, and of course the trigger is going to activate that on KO to potentially let you stop an attacker like a purple Rosinante and Law Blocker to help you survive an extra turn. Our next 1-cost is one that you won't see in many lists, and it is 2 copies of the Yellow Lafitte from the new set. So on KO, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters the cost of 4 or less, but you don't draw. And then the triggers activate the on KO. So this one not drawing, of course, has to happen because it is removing a body. And removing bodies, it's the same thing as L Thor in Purple and L, right? If it drew a card, it would actually be too strong in my opinion, because if you remove a card off the board, that is the equivalent of drawing a card because you're removing tempo. Anyways, that is going to be our last 1-cost. Now, another thing to note with all of these 1-costs, except for the OG Black Lafitte, is they all have the effect trigger activate on KO. Even our 2K does that, right? So all of these have extremely strong on KOs, and they have really good effects if they're in your life. And Katarina Devon is another character, another reason why I think this is probably one of the best cards in the deck, is because she has a different trigger than those cards, right? So this card's trigger says trigger draw a card, so it replaces itself, similar to the 1 cost, but then it lets you play any Blackbeard Pirates 1 cost character from your trash. So that includes any of our triggers here to let us redirect into, or our Lafitte searchers. So if you use this early and your opponent swings into it, effectively making it a blocker for you, you can actually trigger out a Katarina Devon to bring that card back and continue searching, and they have to swing over this again if they don't want you drawing 2 cards every turn effectively. Now we'll get into our mid-range package here, the cards that we're going to be play out in the mid-game, and honestly, there's not a lot of them. In fact, it's only 5, right? So first is going to be our San Juan Wolf here, sitting at 3 copies, one of my favorite cards in the deck, but it has to be at 3 in my opinion, because you don't want to brick on it, but you don't want to not see it when you need it. So a 4 cost 5,000 power character. It's a giant impel down Blackbeard Pirate that has 1k counter on the side there. And he says, on KO, if your leader is the Blackbeard Pirates type, you can draw a card, so again, replacing itself. Then up to one of your leader or character cards, base power becomes 7k during this turn. So this card is just absolutely insane into decks like Goofy, Buggy, right? Anything that's swinging 6s. It's even helpful into Yamato to help you be able to counter out of their 8k swings. But becoming a base 7 is just so strong, and the fact that you can do it in a deck like this, which is yellow, which is gaining life, which is redirecting attacks, makes you insanely tanky and being able to survive to that late game, which is what you want to do. Another thing to note, though, is you can change a character card's base power to 7k on your board. So, for instance, if we have something like a Katarina Devon that we had to establish to threaten a leader with big characters, or if you have a Lafitte that you want to survive an extra turn to keep searching, you can actually change their base powers to 7k as well to keep that character alive. So, just an insane all-around effect. And this says any character as well. So, if you have something out like somehow you played a baby 5, or even this Wiper, which we'll talk about, you can buff their power as well. So just a really, really strong all-around card, and a card that I am really happy to be playing in the deck at 3, and replacing itself is absolutely insane. The trigger activating on KO as well, so you can stack this into your life with some of our healing options, which we'll talk about in a second. Just a really good card. Next, we do play 2 Wiper. So this has literally nothing to do with our deck at all, right? No triggers. We're not Sky Island. We don't care about searching Sky Islands, and it doesn't replace anything or heal, and it's not a Borsellino. But what this card does do for us is it makes our green-blue Luffy and NL matchups a lot better. So this card is going to be a 5-cost 6k character with 1k counter. On play, you can turn the top card of your life cards face up, give all of your opponent's characters minus 2k power for the turn, then KO all of your opponent's characters with 0 power or less. So again, kind of board wiping a lot of the cards in that Goofy matchup, right? You can kill their Mr. 1s and 2s. I think Mr. 3 as well, though he might have 3k power. Let me double check that real quick. So go to green here, and we'll do Mr. 3. All right, so Mr. 3 is going to be 3k. So you cannot kill their 2k counter Mr. 3 in the Goofy deck, unfortunately. Actually, either of them. But you can kill all of their other small bodies. So I believe not Jinbei, but Mr. 1 and Mr. 2, which is very, very huge for this deck. Especially Mr. 2, because Mr. 2 can actually climb up this 7k base power that your leader has. So just going to be a very, very strong overall option here as a 2-of. And then, of course, activate main once per turn, give a Rested Donk card to one of your Sky Island leader characters. Literally only this card. But hey, a 5-cost 7k swinger, if it survives, is really nice to have just to annoy your opponent, and to be able to wipe a lot of those tiny bodies off of Green Blue Luffy's board so that you can make it an extra turn or two might just be all you need to close out that matchup. So that's why we run it here, just because I wanted to make sure that this deck didn't do too poorly into Green Blue Luffy, as it is very popular and doing very well right now. Another thing to note is it is actually pretty good as the black-yellow teach player yourself to know what the top card of your life is, because this deck needs to play at least 2 to 3 turns in advance. Now we'll get into the bread and butter of this deck, the cards that are the reason why we are stalling so long, and we're going to start off with Shiryu, which is kind of our bridge card between our early game strategy of playing a bunch of weenies, setting up our hand, and trying to basically just stabilize ourselves either in life or in hand. This card is going to let us, on play, trash a card from our hand to add a Blackbeard Pirates card with a cost of 6 or less from our trash to the top of our life cards face up. Absolutely broken. It's also a 6/8, which is huge. It is a huge body for 6 cost, and its trigger lets you draw 2 cards. Absolutely insane here, guys. This card is bonkers. This can even, if you trash another Shiryu, heal itself into life to basically guarantee you a baby 5 trigger, right? Drawing 2 cards on trigger. Absolutely insane. Going positive in hand there. And it's a 6/8 body that your opponent now has to deal with. 8K bodies being an absolute nuisance for a lot of these smaller leaders and even for leaders like Nami, right? So just a really, really strong card overall, letting us set up things like the San Juan Wolf to guarantee we're a 7K lead on our opponent's next swings, letting us set up the Lafitte's to make sure that our opponent can't swing in a Cavendish or something of that sort without losing it. We can set up Vasco shots to rest down additional swingers. We can grab back a Lafitte to play it again, or we can set up Katarina Devon to draw us a card and play back out the Lafitte or any of these other one costs as well. So just a ton of tech options here that we can use this Shiryu for. If only it could stack the Baby 5, this card would be broken in my opinion. But, I mean, it can stack itself, which is Baby 5, so hey, there you go, broken. Now, the next card is one that might catch a lot of you guys by surprise at the fact... Hold on, let me change my screen here. Is this it? Hold on. Okay, all of these block it. Never mind. I was going to switch my screen because I'm kind of blocking the cards here. Actually, hold on. I've got to have one of these that doesn't block. Maybe this one. Okay, let me do this. And then we'll go here. Like this. Alright, sorry. I'm trying to make it to where my face doesn't block the cards. Let me see this real quick. Alright. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. We're trying something out. Why is this frozen? Alright, let me switch this back. Alright, well, I guess this one's just not working. But whatever. Okay. Actually, hold on. I can just do this. Sweet. All right, there we go. And now I should not be covering the cards. Excellent. Anyways, as I was talking about, Shiryu, absolutely broken. And the next card is one that almost everybody's been running it for in this deck. And originally I did agree with it, but after play testing a lot, I initially, when I built this deck, was only able to get 3 secret teaches and 3 Shiryus. And after playing the game, Shiryu, I think, is definitely one that I needed at 4, so I was able to get my 4 copies of that. But the teach, after playing, you really only ever play 1, maybe 2 of these out in a game, and you're only playing 2 of them out in the grindier matchups like maybe Blue, Yellow, Nami. This card, okay, we'll go over the card first, and then I'll explain why we're only on 3 of it. So, this card right here, Yellow Teach, is going to be an 8 cost, 10,000 power character with no counter. That is the 7 Warlords of the Sea and Blackbeard Pirates type. Really, really good typings there. On play, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, any 3, put one of them onto the top of your life, face down, without revealing it, and the rest go on the bottom of your deck in any order. This card is another reason why we run 4 Baby 5, because between our 4 Shiryus and our 4 Baby 5s, we have 8 ways out of the top 3 to guarantee that we draw 2 cards off of our trigger. It can set itself into trigger to kill a nuisance of a 5-cost body, thanks to its trigger, which we'll talk about in a second. You can heal any one of your 1 costs to guarantee a trigger. You can heal something like your 10-cost Teach to be able to get you the big cards that you want. And you can even set up things like some of these other cards, which we'll get into in a second. The trigger on this card is also pretty insane. Negate the effect of one of your opponent's characters for the entire turn. So pretty good into characters that have annoying effects there, like some of the things in Sengoku. Then you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So really, really good into things like Lucy, right? If they are playing out those Bartolomeo 4 costs. Really good into other other Teach decks that are playing Burgess, things of that nature. So this card is just going to be really solid to be able to remove some of those nuisance mid-range bodies, or to just negate a troublesome character. Or worst case, you just heal this to the top of your life, add it, and you can play another one. Now I'll get into why I'm only playing 3. And I think you'll notice another random one of in here, Jesus Burgess. So this is a card from OP09. If your leader, this character cannot be KO'd by effects, and then if your leader is Blackbeard Pirates, this character gets 1,000 power for every 4 cards in your trash. I'm not running a ton of cards that fill up our trash super quick here. Now, that being said, we do get a lot of cards into trash quickly because I'm letting a lot of things die. We're drawing cards, we're trashing cards, you know, this, that, and the other. So Burgess can get pretty big. He's here for Lucy sometimes, but more so just to be a troublesome body. And I think that I didn't want a ton of counter in this deck here. And so, or sorry, a ton of bricks in this deck. And this deck can be quite bricky, which we don't really care about because of leader, but still it's something that me as a player, I personally prefer to have more counter. And so I decided, because of some of the tech options, which we'll talk about in a second, that this character was better at 3 in the deck, and I haven't missed the 4th one yet. Now, getting into these last couple cards here, we'll go over the strategy after that, but these last couple cards here, I think, are some of the cards that push this deck further than a lot of people give it credit for. So we're going to start off here with the 9-cost OP14 Boa Hancock. So this SR was insane in Boa. It's really good in this deck too, though not as good as it is in Boa, in my opinion. So it's a 9-cost 10k 7 Warlords character. Unfortunately, it's not Blackbeard, so we can't search it, but it says if your leader is 7 Warlords of the Sea type, which we are, this Black Yellow Teach is the 7 Warlords variant, you get to put the top card of your deck up to 1 to the top of your life cards. Then you can add up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's life cards to their hand. So just an insane card to play out for 9 Dawn, especially if you get stuck going first, as we do when it goes second in this deck. You can play this out for 9. You get to heal a life and make your opponent add 1 without triggering, so really good into the mirror match or blue yellow Nami, things of that nature if they set up the life. And then the trigger lets you play out a character with 6k power less than trigger from your hand. So not as relevant, right, of a trigger, but you can use it to play out things such as your San Juan Wolf or your Katarina Devon or any of your yellow baby characters. Really, really strong trigger there. Not as amazing as it is in Boa, in my opinion, as again, the only times you'd be playing this is if you're stuck going first, or maybe if you're second on your 10 Dawn turn. But for 10 Dawn, we have much stronger plays, in my opinion. And those plays are going to be either another Martial D Teach to guarantee what your next trigger is, or the next card that we'll talk about, and the whole bread and butter of this deck, 10-cost Martial D Teach from OP09. This SR was an absolute menace when it came out in OP09, and it is back with a vengeance in OP16. Let me tell you what. So a 10-cost 12k blocker, 4 Emperors and Blackbeard Pirates type, and it says activate main once per turn. If your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, and if this character was played this turn, up to 1 of your opponent's leader's effects are negated for the rest of this turn. Then, up to 1 of your opponent's character's effects are negated until the end of your opponent's next turn. That character also cannot attack. So, let me break this down because there is a lot of confusion around this card, especially when I've played it at locals, with people being confused about how the effect works on opponents' leaders and characters. Think of it like this. The first effect there, negating a leader, you only care about if your opponent's leader is blue-red ace or yellow NL or something that gives you a beneficial defensive option, because it only negates their leader for your turn. The character is negated and cannot attack until your next turn. So the first effect is there to stop Ace or Lucy or leaders of that nature from using their useful effects. And the second effect is there to stop any of their problem characters from being a problem for a whole turn. You can just forget about it. So a really, really strong option here for 10 Dawn. Now, you might be saying, I'm not that comfortable spending a whole turn playing out a blocker, especially with cards like the green Impel Down Luffy that can just rest it. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we have a way to play this out for the same cost as our secret rare teach, and that is going to be the 8-cost event. Zeha! Sorry, I have a terrible impression of that, but this event is absolutely bonkers in this deck. It is searchable because it's Blackbeard Pirates type, but it says on main, so for 8 Dawn, you activate main if you have 10 Dawn cards on your field, so you can only do this on your 10 Dawn turn. But if you have 10 Dawn cards on your field, you can play up to 1 Martial D Teach from your hand, then add up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's life cards to the owner's hand. So we have 9-cost Boa. We also have 9-cost Boa with Zehahaha, because you can use this and play out your 8-cost Teach to heal out of the top 3 of your deck and make your opponent take a life. But more importantly, you can use 8 Dawn to play your 10-cost blocker to make your opponent take a life, negate their leader effect, and one of their characters can't attack or swing or do anything until the end of their next turn. And you have 2 Dawn left to work with. So you can play out one of your 1 costs, you can put some Dawn up on your leader and swing around. You can even do things like play out your stage. So this is, in my opinion, the best card in the deck, hands down. Now, a lot of these other cards do great things, but this is what lets a control deck function, this type of card. So this card is a 1-cost stage that says activate main. You can trash a card from your hand and rest this stage, look at the top 3 and get any Blackbeard Pirates type card and add it to your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the deck in the order. This card will let you fill up your trash for things like your one of Burgess. This card will let you fill up your trash so that things like Shiryu are set up. It will let you fill up your trash so that things like Katarina Devon are set up. It will let you sculpt your hand so that you have things in hand to play or counter with. It is just an insanely good card, right? And for the last card in the deck, I am running 2 of the Black Vortex. So on the sim, it says Black Spiral, but this is Black Vortex, a 2-cost event that says counter negate the effects of up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards and give that card minus 4k power during this turn. Additionally, it has a trigger to negate the effect of up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards during this turn. So having a trigger is great because this means the card is never a brick in your hand. You can just trash it with leader effect to redirect. This card also lets you negate a leader or character. So this is how you have a good matchup into things like Lucy or Red Blue Ace, because Red Blue Ace, you can negate their blockers with stuff like Marshall D Teach, sure, but if they start chaining them, it can be kind of tricky to win that rat race because they can play things like Roger to negate your blockers. Well, if they play out the Roger, you can use this Black Spiral when they attack with anything, targeting that Roger, remove its rush, remove its effect, negating your blockers, and then you are good to go there. You can start using your blockers again and negate their Roger for that turn. So this lets you counterplay Rogers very effectively, and with Zehahaha, it now lets you use it in conjunction with a Black Teach. So you can play Zehahaha, you can play out your Marshall D Teach from your hand and negate their leader effect and one of their characters, leave those 2 Dawn up, and have a Black Spiral active for your opponent's next turn to be able to negate their leader or character effect. So just an insanely strong card, and searchable, might I add, with Lafitte and Full of Lead. So that is going to be all the cards for this deck. Now, to go over some of the tech cards and why we did not run them. So obviously the elephant in the room here, being a yellow deck, is where is your Borsalinos, right? The 5-cost 6,000 power Borsalino blocker. I will go ahead and pull that up now. That card has been running rampant in things like Blue Yellow Nami, right? In things like Yellow NL, in things like Black Yellow Gecko Moria. Any yellow deck in the format, right, can run this card, and a lot of teaches are doing the same. But there's a couple things that I have issues with this card. First off, it encourages you to take a lot of life aggressively, which I'm not saying is necessarily bad in this leader, but the issue is this deck has a very particular playstyle for the early turns that I have found works best for me, and that does not line up very well with Borsalino. Granted, this would make your odd curve much better, but the issue is it doesn't have trigger either. And this deck really needs trigger options. It's even why I've cut this Burgess down to almost out of the deck. In fact, I might still do that, is because you need triggers to be able to discard. So I just found that Borsalino, despite being a blocker that heals something, it's just not meaningful enough, right? Versus Purple and L, they're going to be able to rest it down pretty easily. Versus Sengoku, they're able to make it basically a non-factor. It's not a Blackbeard Pirate, so you can't search it or redirect into it. It just wasn't my favorite card. I found that 2 Wipers and 2 Lafitte's were just better because it gave me better matchups into more decks. That being said, this is a very strong card and you could include it, but I also wanted to make this deck more affordable, and these Borsalinos are about $30 a pop, give or take, so a full playset of these is going to run you over $100, right? And this deck already is pretty expensive with the Secret Teach, which I believe is also about $40, as well as I think these boas have gone back up again as well. So for that reason, I decided to cut the Borsalinos. So this is the full deck that I have here. I decided not to run the Borsalinos for that reason, and I do think that it's a good card, and you can definitely run it if you have them, but I by no means think that this is a mandatory card to run. Now, getting into the play style of this deck, a lot of people will try to ignore the early game, play out a couple of your little guys here, maybe a Burgess or a San Juan, right, or a Wiper or something, just something to play out to threaten until you get to your Shiryus. I actually think in this deck, you don't need to feel pressure to play anything in the beginning of the game except for your stage and your Lafitte's. So anytime I play the game, I will forego hands with a perfect curve to ensure that I have preferably a stage, but either stage or a Lafitte. And here is the reason why. This deck is pretty card intensive, right? Because you have to trash a trigger from your hand. And even though the cards that you were taking as damage will let you draw and refill your hand from the ones that you were trashing, going card neutral every turn can be pretty tricky in a format where you have decks like Purple NL that are going card neutral and removing your board against decks like Blue Green Luffy, which are doing the same thing but making a board, right? You need to have a way to get card advantage in this control deck to survive to the late game, as having more cards in your hand, especially ones with trigger, are invaluable in general, but especially in this deck. So the way that I play this deck, going first or second, is I want to establish a stage and or a Lafitte and start filtering and perfecting my hand's curve. And so what I will often do is play out the Lafitte, and unless they have two searchers, immediately start searching with this Lafitte to try and fix my hand. And then when my opponent starts attacking into it, I will actually 2k counter out to save this if they swing a 2k searcher into it, and then if they swing their leader, redirect with my leader effect into my leader to take that life instead of losing the Lafitte. And that way I can ensure for my first couple turns that I'm drawing an extra card or two every turn and filtering with full lead. So I actually play Lafitte control in the early game, where I'm just trying to spam out Lafittes, get as many as I can, search as many cards as I can, and use them to help set up my trash by discarding stuff with my leader effect and with my stage. Even going so far as to, off of my Shiryu, heal the Katarina Devon so that when I take a hit, play that Lafitte back out to keep searching later on in the game. And I do that even up to the Shiryu turn. And I think that this card right here is why you don't need to run My Era Begins and why Burgess is bait. Burgess, in my opinion, just loses to too much stuff. It can get bottom decked pretty easily by things like Gravity Blade, by decks like Lucy. It's just not as resilient as a lot of cards, and it takes a lot of setup, which a lot of times you are not going to have time for in this more aggressive format. But My Era Begins is another card that people are running over this because it's an event searcher, searches top 3, trashes the rest, right, and itself, and it has trigger so that you can be able to discard that to use leader effect. However, this card has counter on it, which I think is pretty valuable, and more so than that, because of the fact that this card has to use a Dawn to rest, this card helps fix your going first curve without you having to play things like Borsellino, without having to play things like the Kuma, which I think is very strong. I'll pull that up now and talk about it in a second. You don't have to run any particular cards here in order to have a strong going first curve, right? This is the Kuma that I'm referring to. So I actually had a lot of success with this before I had all of my teaches. This one on play, if you have 2 or less, you can add a card from the top of your deck, the top of your life cards for free. And then on KO, you add a card from the top of your opponent's life cards to their hand, so they don't want to kill this because it lets you get to game a lot faster against them. This is a very strong option and a great replacement, in my opinion, for this Martial D Teach. You can just go -3 of these and +3 Kumas here if you don't have the Teaches, and then just drop Zehaha down to 1 potentially. Just because you only have 4 Teaches to play out instead of 7 off of this card. But this Kuma is a great option, in my opinion. But that being said, the reason why I think this deck has a fine going first and second is because of this Lafitte, right? So going first, you can play out either this Lafitte or this Full Lead for your turn and then pass it up, or potentially search with Full Lead if you want to start setting up your trash already. But for your 3 Dawn turn, there's usually nothing you do other than play 1 or 2 1-costs out and maybe swing with your leader. But now, with the Lafitte, you can search with the Lafitte if you played it the last turn, play out another Lafitte because this can search itself, and search again, establishing 2 chump blockers and searchers that your opponent now has to spend 2 swings to swing into to start removing your value engine. Or you can even just do stage plus another Lafitte plus search and just really start putting on the pressure of, hey, I am going to get cards in my hand. I'm going to start getting card advantage and outvalue you in my control deck that is trying to go long. You need to deal with this, or I will just have too many cards in hand for you to pressure me down. So I think it's really strong for that option. And then, of course, once you get to your 5 Dawn turn, you can play out your San Juan, your Katarina on curve even is a really strong option, in my opinion. Or a Burgess or something, and keep searching with that Lafitte. And then on your 7 Dawn turn, right, you're going to play out your Shiryu and heal. But again, if you still have your Lafitte out, you can use that Lafitte to search again. So you can just use this every single one of your odd curves, in addition to your stage searches if you have it, or in addition to your even curve options, and keep putting on the pressure on your opponent to remove this card as opposed to attacking your face and your life and killing you. So I just think Lafitte is insanely strong for that option because it pressures your opponent in a way that not many people realize, and it's very subtle. And for my opinion, this is one of the cards that can really win you a lot of games, not entirely off of your own skill, but more so off of the lack of your opponents. This style of card, where you are constantly drawing cards, where you're constantly searching, sculpting your deck, fixing your hand, this card right here really defines the great players from the good ones. A great player will see the threat in this card and swing into it every time. This is also, in my opinion, why the blue-green matchup, in my opinion, is pretty close to even for this deck unless you high roll, or excuse me, unless you low roll and they high roll. Because the blue-green Luffy is forced to kill a card like this. If you draw 2 cards every turn with a leader redirect, with a San Juan Wolf to be able to buff your leader, with things like Shuryu and Teach Healing or Boa, with things like the Marshall D Teach late game to potentially stop stuff, getting an extra card every turn is a death sentence for that deck. But swinging into this is also really, really bad for them because they lose pressure on your leader. And if they're swinging their guys without putting Dawn on this, you can actually 2K for it. You literally don't care and just save your Lafitte. And, I mean, it's just a lose-lose for them swinging into this. So this card, in my opinion, pressures your opponent so much in that subtle way of, hey, I will outvalue you in this game if you don't deal with this. And then if they deal with it, well, you can just turn around and Katarina Devon stack into life, or get lucky and trigger it, play Shuryu, play Teach, guarantee it, and then you just play it back out and it's over. And then of course, if one of your Lafitte's does manage to make it to the late game, you can actually use your Zehahaha to play out one of your Teaches, right, to get your game plan going, and then one of those 2 extra Dawn that you have left over, you can actually use to just play your Lafitte out and then search, or just search with it if it's already there, right, play another one, and you can keep getting value in the late game off of these Zehahas, which is why I kind of want to run 3 of this event, because I never want to trash this out of my hand for leader effect because I think it's so valuable. And so because of that, a lot of times I'll actually take hits that I probably shouldn't to keep this in hand. So if I had 3, I would be more comfortable discarding 1 for leader effect there. But again, I can't really find the space for it in this build. I think 2 is fine, but 3 would be very preferred. But yeah, this is the list for Black Yellow Teach that I have found and I am very comfortable with. Now, what I would like to do is get into some of the top tournament deck lists. Oh, you only came for the Taco Bell. Well, I did get it today, so I got my Baja Blast right here, and then I just haven't been eating it because this is kind of a yap one, but I got my Cinnamon Twists, those who know, kind of like the most goated snack, and then I have a Doritos Locos Taco, and, oh, hold on, this is the wrong box. I got 2 boxes today, one for me and one for my mom, and I gave her mine with the, it's like street chalupas. That sucks. And then I have the chicken flatbread melt here. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and start eating this a little bit while I pull up the other thing. But what I want to do is get into some of the deck lists from recent tournaments and see what people are running and winning. So we'll go ahead and look at Teach here. 4th best deck in the format right now for Standard. We have a raw win rate of almost 52% with a weighted win rate that is almost identical, which is insane to me. That is so good. Yeah, pretty high play rate too, actually. The highest played rate leader of the new format, beating out Blue-Green Luffy. That's pretty surprising to me. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Now, these are our matchup spreads, right? 50% into the mirror match, of course. At least I have a mom. Rip, dude. Yeah, I wasn't trying to rub it in, dude. It just kind of happened, you know? I just happened to have a mom. It looks like you're abysmal into Blue-Green Luffy, which is why I teched so hard into it. But yeah, you always want to go second here. Always want to go second. Yamato, you lose to. Always want to go second. Nami, you do beat pretty hard, especially if you go second. And then NL, you're losing to. You still want to go second, despite their good first curve. Or sorry, this is Rosie. Yeah, you want to go second into Rosie here. NL, you whoop super hard. Shanks, you are winning if you go second, right? Blue, red, ace is a great matchup. Red ace is even, go second. Lucy is terrible, go second. Boa is awesome, goes second, right? Pretty much everything goes second. Sengoku's also a tough matchup. Now, my most recent local that I played, I ran this Teach here. And it was 5 rounds. Out of those 5 round guys, I kid you not, look at this matchup chart as I tell you. Sengoku, round 1. Sengoku, round 2. Lucy, round 3. Yamato, round 4. And then finally, in round 5, I played against the Blue-Red Ace. Brutal gauntlet. And despite that, I still managed to go 3-2. So I only dropped the game to the Sengoku and the Yamato. And the Yamato, I actually bricked. I saw no searchers or anything to sculpt my hand. Didn't draw a lot of counter. I think if I saw more searchers, that is actually a much closer matchup. Let's go ahead and look at these deck lists here. Not at the sim, actually, at the tournament ones. So looking here, we have I have no idea how to say that. Is that Dicel? Dickel? I don't know. But we have this guy right here. He got 5th place at the Occitania's Tolos Regionals, PEC. So, taking a look at this one, we have our one of Teach Leader. Actually, I'll just open it up here because it's easier to see. So we have 2 Lafitte Searchers here. He's probably on, yeah, 4 My Era and 4 Burgess. So this is one of the versions of the deck, which is you run a ton of Burgesses and you try to get value there. Again, I think it takes too much setup personally, and it also makes you run way more bricks because of the My Eras. But hey, you know, this guy got 5th, so he had figured something out here. So let's look at what we got. We got 2 Lafitte Searchers. 3 Avalo Pizarro is actually very interesting. Draw a card, play a full lead from your hand, or trash. Pretty interesting effect here. I personally think the other 2Ks are just better, like the Baby 5s, but hey, maybe he was just trying to max out on his Blackbeard Pirate stuff because My Era only searches the top 3. We have 3 Doc Q, 2Ks, 4 Vasco shots, 4 Burgess, 4 Devons, so very similar ratios here to mine, though it looks like he's probably on just 10 2Ks. Yeah, he's not running any others. 1 San Juan Wolf is brave, to say the least. I think this is kind of crazy. He is running the Black Rope Dragon Twister, which I'll talk about in a second, to help with swarm decks. But yeah, I feel like this is just asking to get walloped by Blue-Green Luffy. 4 Borsalinos. Yep, another one of, in my opinion, bait cards, but pretty good in a more bricky version because you can just take hits and play out the Borsalinos to heal them back. 4 Shiryu, 4 8 cost, 1 Boa. I kind of respect this. I don't think Boa is super great. 3 10 cost Teach, in my opinion, is also brave. I really want to see this card at 4. Then he's on 4 My Era Begins, right? Another searcher, look at the top 3, grab a Blackbeard and trash the rest. So it helps fill up your trash for this Burgess here. Black Rope Dragon Twister is a really cool tech card that I've been seeing people run. So it costs 6, it has a trigger, but on main you can turn the top card of your life face up so you know what your next card is. And then if you have less characters than your opponent, you KO an opponent's character with a cost of 6 and a cost of 5. So it's kind of like Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, but it hits a 6 and a 5 instead of 2 6s. Really strong, but it does have to KO, which is annoying for a card that can't be KO'd. And then the triggers draw 2, trash 1, so it helps you filter your hand. Running this at 3 is interesting. I think 2 is good for any tech card, but again, not running the Baby 5 means he's not drawing as many cards in this list as on average, so I can understand running 3 to make sure that you see it for those matchups you need it. 2 Zehahas is pretty standard, and 4 Full Leads. So I like this list. It's pretty interesting. Again, I'm not personally a fan of the Borsalinos, and only running 1 San Juan, no Wipers, and 3 Black Dragon Twisters is okay. I think you're just asking to get walloped by Blue-Green Luffy, but hey, he got 5th with it. Absolutely awesome stuff here from Dicel. And now we have the player here who got 17th. His name is Progress 2126 in the same regional. Here we don't see the same thing, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at this one as well. And it looks like he's on a little bit closer to what mine was. Also on the Burgess package here. Wait, no, this is the exact same list. Is it not? Did I click on the same one on accident? Hold on. Oh, no, it is just the exact same list. So these guys ran the exact same list here. Interesting stuff, I guess. We have another 17th place here. This one looks like it's not running Black Rope Dragon Twister. Okay, this is a little bit closer to the one that I'm running. We're going to take a look at this just to see the ratios he chose. He also is on Borsalino, but only 3, and he's playing 3 Wiper. Pretty brave here, playing 6 non-searchable, non-trigger cards. He's also on 4 Burgess, which doesn't have trigger as well. Pretty interesting. And yeah, of course, because of that, we're not running any Lafitte Searchers, which makes sense. But we have 3, 4... does he play the Baby 5s is the question for 2Ks. We got 4 here, 4 here. What's the other 2K? Is it only 8 2Ks? Dude, we got some brave players. And look at all these bricks. 4, 8, 10, 14, 18, 24 bricks. So almost half of the deck is a brick. And I guess he's justifying that by saying, okay, well, we'll just have, you know, a whole bunch of extra healing and pray. I think having this many bricks and having this few triggers comparatively is really brave, really risky. And he got 17th, which isn't bad by any means, but I think you can see. Okay, here's a 3rd place here. This was at a Toronto Treasure Cup. So we'll look at this one, and then we'll take a look at some Shanks lists. All right, so we got 2 Van Auger. We'll look at 2Ks first. So 2Ks. We only have 8 2Ks again. So 4.Q, Vorkatarina. A lot of brave guys. Next, we got Van Augers. Vasco Shots at 4. 4 Burgess again. A lot of people trying out Burgess. 4 San Juans. I like it. 4 Borsas is all right, I guess. 4 Shuryus. 4 Teaches. 3 Boas. 3 Teaches. I would personally drop one of these for one more of these. Without a doubt. That would be my first. 4 My Eras. 2 Zehas. And 4 Fulleds. So people are making this deck look very soft. But I think, personally, there's a lot of cooking to be done, as it's one of those decks that's more of like a meta counter deck than like a straight up, oh, this is, you know, purple NL where I have like 3 flex spots, and those flex spots are just ratios, not even new cards. So, pretty interesting stuff there. Let's go ahead and go back and take a look at the Shanks list. So, Shanks right now is 9th overall on our leaderboard, so actually in the top 10 as a red deck. Awesome. Weighted win rate of not quite 49 with a raw of not quite 50. 4.59% play rate. Let's take a look at our red hair Pirates boy. So, second win rate of almost 56% is crazy. Don't go first. Just don't. For matchups, we have a lot of red here, actually. It's pretty interesting. So, you do decently pour into Teach. You actually win the blue-green Luffy matchup as long as you go second. So, that's pretty awesome to see. And then we have Yamato. Again, dice roll dependent, but you want to go second. Nami, you're actually just slightly losing no matter which way you look at it, which is interesting to me. And then same for Rosinante, they just make too big of a body. Same with purple NL, and then mirror match goes second. Into red blue ace, excuse me, you're losing. You just want to go second. Red ace, you want to go second a lot, and if you do, you win. Lucy is pretty even. If you go second, you're going to do great. Boa, yeah, good luck, you're just cooked. Sengoku, you win either way. Ace Luffy, if you go second, you have a fair shot, and then Buggy, you want to go second. So overall, not the best matchup spread, but again, very skill-intensive deck, and I think a lot of the good players right now are trying to push blue-green Luffy, or even Teach or Nami, things of that nature. They're playing like what they view as the most competitive deck. So I think this one, it kind of suffers a little bit from not getting as many good players. Let's go ahead and look at some tournament deck lists for Shanks and see how people are doing. Alright. So here we got a 17th place. I'll look at all these because there's only 3. Which just goes to show you this deck is very underrepresented at tournaments. So if you are trying to pick a deck that is more of a control style, right, more of a simple style, and you don't like mirror matches, highly recommend Shanks. You will not play mirror matches with this deck. We only have 3 total results. Now, all of these are 17th place, actually. And we got Dugong Flow, Angel Rico Morga, I don't know, it cuts off there. And then we got Alan Diego Garcia. And these are both in Mexico City. So we got 3 17th place lists. Let's take a look. All right, so here is the first one by, I believe this is Dugong. So we got 4 Utas, 4 Rockstars, 4 Hongos. How many 2Ks we got? 12? Yeah, the 4 Utas. Okay, makes sense. So our 2K lineup is pretty standard. Getting into stuff, we got 4 Searchers here, 2 Searcher events here. So this guy's looking for a little bit more red hair consistency, which makes sense. And then we are on the 4 Lucky Roo trade blockers. Pretty cool. I thought about running 4 of this, but my only issue with that was into Purple and L specifically. This card kind of sucks because they just rested immediately and you lose all your value. But we are on 4 Lucky Roo, 4 of the blocker Shanks, 2 Yasop. I personally cut this, but I think it's, you know, it's a decent card. We got 4 Ben Beckmans, of course, 4 Laws, nice, 4 Beckmans, and we got 4 Buff Shanks, 3 KO Shanks, 3 Rush Shanks, and 2 Come On We'll Fight Yous. Oh, what's up, Patreon? Long time no see. What's up? I don't hate this list. It looks pretty consistent. My only issues is that you don't have any way to draw your tech options other than just drawing them, right? Because everything in here is a Searcher. Searcher Uta, Searcher event. So we have no Kobe's. We have no, you know, Lucky Roo from PRB, anything like that. Pretty solid list overall, though. I do like how many bricks we run. This is a pretty low number of bricks as well. So we have a decent amount of counter. But yeah, pretty solid list overall. Great 17th place finish here from Dugong. Now I believe we have Angel, or Angel, whatever you want to call it. So this one looks a little bit more techy, which I like. So let's get into this one. We got 4 Utas and 2 Come On We'll Fight Yous for our searchers. Our 2K lineup is not that standard, actually. We only run 2 Utas, which is pretty interesting. We have 3 Hongo and 3 Rockstar, and 4 Ace, Sabo, and Luffy. So pretty big on the power removal, it looks like. And then we are going to be running for the rest of our deck, right? We already said 4 Utas. We have 3 Lucky Roo and 4 Shanks, and then 2 of the PRB Lucky Roo. So, again, I think this is the right call here if we're running 4 of our Trafalgar Laws, 2 Zoros as well for non-engine, and then, of course, our 4 Asabo Luffys. You need ways to draw into those, right? Also kind of risky to run cards that are not red-haired searchable, right? So we have a good number with 34 here, but we have a couple that aren't, right? So because of that, we want to draw into those. So I do like the Lucky Roo here to help us cycle into those, as well as, or I think that might be it. That's all their cycle, right? Yeah, cool. So a good 4 cost lineup. We have no Yasops as well, which I personally like to see. Then we got our 4 Ben Beckmans, mandatory, 4 Laws is great. Only 2 Utas, and then we have 2 Zoros, which I find interesting because they go 2 Zoros and 2 of the 9-cost 10k Shanks. So maybe what their idea is here with our Ace, Sabo, and Luffy's is we are trying to lower the power stuff and swing into it with this character rush, which I don't hate. I don't hate that at all. We also have Hongos to do the same, and the Laws, right, to minus boards. So it looks like you're going for more of a board control, almost Lucy style here with the Zoro. I don't hate it personally. Not my flavor of it, but I do respect the grind here. I kind of like this idea. We got 4 Ben Beckmans as well, again, capitalizing off of all of our power removal cards down here. Then we have 2 of the buff Shanks. We have 3 of our 10-cost KO Shanks, 4 Rush Shanks, and then, again, our 2 Searcher events. So, pretty decent list overall here. I personally would try to run a couple more Utas and, honestly, just cut, like, a Rockstar or 2. I don't think Rockstar is that great, personally. But, yeah, great list here. Again, we haven't seen a Kobe yet. So going into our last list here, okay, finally we have one with Kobe, but let's go ahead and check it out. We only have 10 2Ks, right? So again, on to Utas, and then 4 Asaba Luffy's and Hongos. So no Rockstars whatsoever, which I kind of like. I think that's smart. But we have 4 Utas and 3 Searcher events. So we're going for a more consistency-based build here, which I kind of like for a deck like Shanks. So getting into it, 4 Uta Searchers, we have the Ace Luffy's and the Hongos. We have 3 Lucky Roo trade blockers and 4 Shanks blockers, right? Just 2 really solid options. 3 Kobe's is very nice, right? Being able, again, to help us refill our hand and cycle into our non-searchables. Then we have the 2 Lucky Roos, again, to help us cycle our hand. Mandatory 4 of. We have 3 Laws, which I like. If you have more draw, you can find it pretty easily. 2 Utas, and then we have 4 Ben Beckmans, which is pretty cool as well. I would drop 1 for an extra Uta or something. Then we have 4 Buff Shanks, which is nice. 2 KO Shanks, which is interesting. I would do 3 and 3 personally. But hey, they were finding success with this one, so good for them. And then we have the 4 Rush Shanks and 3 Come On We'll Fight Yous. So I like this list a lot more personally because it lets you find those non-tech options like Asabo Luffy, Uta, things like that. And then, of course, the Kobe being able to clear small bodies and draw cards is great. Yeah, Patreon, actually about that, somebody else did comment that too, so I realized that after when I read the card. Dude, I'm not going to lie. I thought I got rid of the curse of not being able to read when I left Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in 2022. And, I didn't. So, it's rough. I think I have, like, about 1 misplay per video now at this point. So, that's why it's good to record, in my opinion, and watch back. So you can catch what you are, like, breezing over or missing and then be able to improve that, right, for your next time. So... And, you know, it's just, it keeps people paying attention, so it lets me know who's actually watching. So, appreciate you watching all the way into that, because that was, like, deep into that video, so appreciate that. But, yeah, so this is our last list for the Shanks here. Pretty interesting stuff overall. But, yeah, that's going to be our leader stats and stuff. So let's go ahead and go back to our leader rankings here. Yep, so, again, just looking at all these. Boa's another strong option that's come back. But, yeah, if you want a solidly competing deck that not as many people are playing. Like, I think I'm one of maybe 2 or 3 people total at my locals that has built Black Yellow Teach, and most of the ones that built it they just don't like how hard it is, and so they've swapped off. So I'm playing 0 mirror matches with Teach, and definitely with Shanks, right? There's not a ton of Shankses around. So if you want to play through a locals or maybe even a regional, Shanks is a great one to surprise people with, and you won't be playing mirror matches. And Black Yellow Teach, in my opinion, is also a solid one. But something that I wanted to mention that I didn't say before is part of the reason why I like these two leaders is they both teach you fundamentals of the game hardcore. If you do not know good fundamentals as a Shanks, you are going to get smacked. And even more so with Teach. You need to know what your opponent's deck is trying to do and what you have available to try and counter that. And it just teaches you a lot about tempo and about the math of the game, right? Like when to counter out, when to use leader effect, when not. And with Teach, it also teaches you how to play around what your opponent's next couple turns will probably look like. So it's very intrinsic on sculpting hand, fighting for tempo and board, and then of course once you get to the end game, Teach's game plan is pretty streamlined. But yeah, I've really been enjoying both of these leaders. Let me go ahead and open back up our deck maker right here, just so we can take a look at those two deck lists again for those of you who are just joining in. All right. So, yep, just once again, taking a look. This was the Shanks list that I've been running. Yeah. So here we go. I have considered maybe cutting the building snakes to just put in 2 more 2Ks and run 14 2Ks, but I think, honestly, just having a 1 cost -3 is crazy. So this is my list. I've been having decent success with it, and I think this Kobe is, like, super obnoxious for your opponent to deal with, especially if they're playing, like, Blue-Green Luffy or NL. And, dude, if you can resolve 2 of these, it actually feels like cheating, because you can just counter everything your opponent sends at you and just refill your hand with these. So, yeah, this is the Shanks list, and then we'll take a look at the Teach one once again. Here is the Black-Yellow Teach list that I came up with and I have been running. But, yeah, that is going to do it pretty much for today's stream. So, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys swinging by. It means a lot. If you enjoyed the stream, be sure to let me know by leaving a like down below. It helps me out, and it lets me know that you guys like seeing stuff like this. And also feel free to hit the subscribe button with the notification bell right next to it so that you can see any time that I go live or put a post or video on the channel. Leave a chat in the chat right now, talking to me, letting me know what's going on, or you can leave a comment on any of my videos, newest one, oldest one, whichever, and let me know about something, and I'll be sure to get back to you on that. You can share this video with your friends using the curvy arrow button, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So good luck with the bananas tomorrow. Bananas. Dude, I feel like oh, what is this? I'm missing this. All right, I have to ask, what's the bananas, bro? What's the bananas? I'm missing this. Also, for those of you who don't know, I will be out of town until like this next Saturday. Or sorry, this coming Saturday, because I'm actually flying back out to San Diego to hang out with some of my buddies from the Navy, and then we're going to go to the LA Dodgers at the San Diego Padres game up in LA, the One Piece themed one. So I'm going to get a straw hat, and then I'm going to try to get some Dawn cards for me and my buddies back here. So I am going to be out of town for the next couple of days, so don't expect any videos. I wanted to try and edit one and then have it published kind of during that time, but just time constraints and things going on here at home with getting ready to start my new job have prevented me from doing that. But that's where I'm going to be for the next couple days. So if that's what you meant by bananas, first off, I don't know how you knew that, but I did Patreon. I'm sorry. I forgot. Dude, I'm terrible at remembering things now. Like I can't remember names at all. Unless it's like text on a card for some reason, like half the stuff that I hear will just in one ear out the other, you know? Brutal. But yeah, that's the list that I got. All right, let's go here. There we go. But yeah, unfortunately, I have a kind of an early day tomorrow because my flight leaves at like 6 in the morning, so I got to get up at like 4 to drive over there because it's like a 40-minute drive to the airport. And of course, I need enough time to like get through processing and all that, so it's gonna be rough tomorrow, boys, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, just for y'all's information, for those of you who follow the One Piece side of stuff, I do intend to try and main Black Yellow Teach moving forward in this format, just to see if I like it enough to take to a bigger event. Because not that I don't trust in Red Black Sabo, but there's just so many different decks right now that are good that Red Black Sabo can be tricky to like build to tech into all of them. So Black Yellow Teach is one where it just naturally counters a couple of the top decks, and you have room to put in tech options to deal right with some of the other decks. And so, you know, I've been labbing out a couple different decks, and this is the one that I probably like the most because I just like the character, and this playstyle, it reminds me a lot of OP9 Teach, who I really enjoyed. So I don't know. It's one of those decks where maybe you've experienced this too if you've played card games and stuff. But you just kind of hit this, like, not flow state, but it just moves. Like, you just feel it, you know? It just flows. So, the first deck that I built was Black Gecko Moria, and that one I did not feel it. And so I built Blue, Purple, Reiju, got all the cards for that. And once I started playing that one I just felt like it was just working. Even though it's, like, crazy complicated, once I learned, like, the ideas behind it and I started, you know, getting better at fundamentals, it just feels like it flows. And so that was one that I really enjoyed. OP9 Teach, when he came out, just felt amazing to play for me. And then once Red Black Sabo came out, that one felt great. And Teach is another one of those that just feels really good to play as, in my opinion. And it's really satisfying to plan so many turns ahead, right, and kind of outsmart your opponent. And then once you get there and you execute that game plan, it is such a great feeling, of course. And then, like, I was playing this past Sunday, right? And I was playing against a blue-red ace, and he decided to play Roger to try and go for game after his Zehahad, and I had the Black Spiral, so I Black Spiraled his Roger, and it was so satisfying because the second he saw the card, it was just fist bumps, GG's, you know, because it was an all-in play. So there's just a lot of parts of this deck that are like high dopamine. Like, you can also be losing sometimes, and then just, you know, oopsies, yellow slop your opponent, like you just trigger everything you need. So, which isn't that fair, but, like, I was playing against Sengoku, which is just an abhorrent matchup, and when I was playing against Sengoku, it feels really good to out-yellow them because they literally just get 3 giant free bodies that do everything, like, a turn before you could even play one of them, normally. So, yeah, I just really like the Teach. That's what I've been on. So I'm just going to eat some Taco Bell here for a little bit and talk to you guys if you want to chat, and then if we're all good, I'll probably end it here in a little bit. But yeah, it wouldn't be Taco Bell Tuesday if I wasn't eating some Taco Bell on Tuesday. Actually, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to go see if my other box got eaten because I grabbed the wrong one. I'll be right back. Alrighty. Also, Rosie and RG Luffy. Yo, actually, okay, I gotta pry into that Patreon, cause Rosie, I'm not gonna talk about. Wait, okay? It's PY Rosie, right? Like, we're not tripping here. You're not doing the cool thing. Not that PY Rosie isn't cool, but there's a really cool. All right, dude, you're gonna make me do it. This is what I mean. So for those of you who don't know, or are new to the game, you're probably like, oh yeah, Purple Yellow Rosinante, right? Right, this guy. Yeah, purple, yellow, Rosinante. You just play a bajillion of these guys, and then you play Sakazuki and you win the game. There is another Rosinante that is legal right now as a leader, and it is this one. Blue-green Rosinante from OP16, dude. Now, I'm going to go ahead and slap this together because I've been thinking about it, but this deck is actually insane. So this is the only leader in the game, for those of you who don't know, with blocker. So you can rest your leader to redirect. It's kind of like a bad black-yellow teach effect, but this was like the first leader like this they'd ever done because this is OP05, right? This is the first anniversary. And then on the end of your turn, if your hand is 6 cards or less, you can set the leader as active. So you restand your blocker leader at the end of your turn if you have a small hand. Well, this deck had this printed in EBO2. And this card is a 2-cost 3,000 power character that says activate main. You can rest a Dawn in this character. And if your leader is Rosinante, you look at the top 5. And then you can play one character at the cost of 2 or less from those 5 rested onto your field, then put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. And so for the longest time, this deck was just kind of buns, right? Because it doesn't really do anything. Like the leader effect is okay, and it had like a very brief flash of brilliance, and I think it was like OP14 maybe, where it could do stuff because of like the Mihawk support. But in case you guys have been living under a rock, let's go ahead and turn off purple here and get green in here. There's some green cards that cost 2 and some blue cards that cost 2 that just came out that are pretty good. So first off, we run this probably. So it's a blocker. On your opponent's turn, if one of your other rested characters would be KO'd, you can instead trash this character. Now, we'll just look for, I forget how you do 2 cost. I think it's like this. We'll just do 2. All right. So, getting into 2 costs here, you can play stuff like this. Vanderdecken. Trash a Fishman card from your hand or a Noah's Ark from your hand or field. KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters. Any rested character. Pretty good. Well, that was the old package, right? You would run like this Fishman build. It was like weird. You run like this guy for a counter and stuff. You run a Fishman build. But now there's Impel Down cards. And, yeah, they're pretty crazy. So you can run this guy if you want when this character's KO'd, rest one of your opponent's characters. That one's kind of funny. Oh, shoot, you're right. Sorry. My bad. Okay, yeah, blue-green Rosinante. My fault. Blue-green Rosinante. Blocker, end of your turn if your card's in hand is 6 or less, rest this. Or, sorry, set this leader's active. So you can run these 2 Rosinantes here, which are 2 costs. Right? They're really, really strong with the new Impel package. So, getting into what those look like, there's Inazuma, who's like, okay, I'll put one in there for now. This one's pretty funny because you can KO, if it's KO by an effect, you can rest any one of your opponent's characters. So they're forced to swing and like block, or like they're forced to either rest this and swing into it, or they're forced to just like let you block with it. That one's funny. You also have these guys, which are kind of goofy. So these 2Ks here, if you have Bunkov, play a character that costs 2 or less from your hand. If you have Antlerkov, play a character that costs 2 or less from your hand when attacking. So these 2, you don't run, but they're pretty funny. You also have Jinbei here, which is like an aggro option. I'll put a couple of those in, but we're going to cut these down. Moving on, though, it's not as much the green ones that are crazy, though there are some good green ones. Right? Like, you can't run this guy because you're not Impel Down, but you can run this guy. And I'll show you why this guy is crazy in a second. But yeah, you're going to run that. Maybe you run this? Nah. Alright. But here's why the deck is crazy now. Here's why we're cooking. Because you have some of these now. These guys. So this Rosinante lets you rest a Dawn card and this character and play one of these guys. And then you draw a card. So you play this from hand, -1. Rest a card, play a character from the top of your deck. Technically even on tempo at this point because you just got 2 bodies. But still -1 in hand. And then one of the bodies you get draws you a card. Hey, that's pretty good. Place that card in hand? Sure. Alright, well, what else do we have here? Let me introduce you to the OG Ivankov here. 3 cost, 4K character. Reveal the top card of your deck, play up to 1 2-cost character card, and then put the remaining card at the top or bottom of your deck. So basically what this says is you reveal the top card. If it's a 2 cost, you can play it. If not, you leave it on the top or bottom. And then when attacking, if you have 6 or less cards in hand, you get to draw a card. So you can run this one, and you can play out your Rosie, or any of these guys, or your Mr. 3s. So kind of funny. I don't know if it's that great because it kind of just dies to everything with NL. But you can play this guy. Look at the top 3, get it impelled down, add it to your hand, put the rest, and play any character card with the cost of 2 or less from your hand. So this one not only searches your top 3 for an impel down, so it finds any of our new guys, but you don't even have to play the impel down out. You can just play this Rosie if you want. So you have a lot of like these little body support cards, right? And then for 6Ks, so that we can benefit off of this Mr. 3 here, there's like a lot of really strong options now. So to show you guys a little bit of what I'm talking about, we're going to go for... Actually, can I do this? No. I forget how to search the powers and stuff on here. If one of y'all know, you can drop it in chat for me. But there's a lot of good cards here that cost 6 and have 6k power. So there's this Law here. Really good into a deck that plays a lot of little guys, right? So you can bounce back one of your little guys, like this Rosie here once you rest it, and then play out like an actual body, which we will run. Some real bodies here in a second. But there's also Brooke. Okay, Brooke's pretty good, right? Like we already know this card is good from things like Blue-Green Luffy. We can run a couple of those, right? Brooke seems good. What else do we got? Oh, the new 6-cost 6k Croc blocker. What does this do? It's a blocker on your opponent's, or on play up to one of your opponent's rested characters will not become active. Hey, yo. That's kind of good. Right? In green where you can rest stuff. All right. Well, we'll put some of those in there. Let's do... Let me make sure there's none down here. You can do stuff like Jozu too if you want, right? Bounce your guys back and then return your opponent's guys. You can also do Boas if you want to like bottom deck and stuff. But I think there's some other stuff that we can run here. So for 5 costs, there's some classic green cards that you can run here that are really good, right? So you have Jory Bonnie here is really good to keep an opponent's Dawn or character frozen. So great tech card into stuff like NL because it prevents them, right? It denies them their purple NLs. Or you can just keep their stuff frozen if they already played it out. Good into decks that want to hit 10 Dawn like Teach, kind of, or, you know, Red Blue Ace, things like that. But this one here, I think, is the better option, Carrot. So just a 5/6. I'll get there in a second. I got you. It's actually crazy. So we got Carrot here. This card is insane right now, in my opinion. On play and when attacking. Yeah, I got you, Patriot. I got you. You got the Carrots here. So on play and when attacking, if one of your opponents rested, 7 costs or less, don't restand. So this is doing the same thing as our events are doing, right? The I Know You're Strong and the Lunas, which, by the way, we definitely just run those. Throw some of these in here. We'll definitely change it here in a second. I Know You're Strong. Boom. But another card that you can play here that is insane in this deck, not this Cavendish, unfortunately, but Brooke is not Straw Hat locked, I don't think. Oh, it is. You're right. My fault. I always forget that. Anytime I think about Blue-Green Luffy, I think Impel Down, so that was on me. But yeah, we can run this Cavendish here, guys, which is insane for multiple reasons. So first reason, we can give it 2 Dawn with Galdino, which is pretty good. But more importantly than that, right? When attacking, you draw 2 trash ones, so it goes card positive. On top of that, though, you can block for this with your leader. So into decks where it's like NL, like reducing its power and stuff, you know, to swing into it, you don't care, because if they reduce it too far, you're like, all right, I'll just block and draw a card. Seems good. There's also a lot of really good events, though, in blue specifically that you can run in this deck. So let me go down here. So one that we used to run, you can run Slave Arrow if you want, because it returns any of your 2 costs to give a plus 4k. So this one's pretty good. We'll put a couple of those in. Again, this is not the final list. We're just throwing stuff in. But there's another one. It's called Overheat, I think. Which, is that still legal? It should still be legal. Maybe it's not. Did Overheat rotate out? I guess it rotated out. Well, there used to be one called Overheat, which was really good. But yeah, we got that. If you want to run the Fishman stuff, you can also do Arc Noah. Another card that I actually want to put in here, though, that not a lot of people are running, but I think is really strong, is this one right here. Two-sword style. I don't think it's actually called EI Rashomon. I think it's got a different name in English. But for 3 Dawn, you can KO up to 2 of your opponent's rested characters with the original cost of 4 or less. This one is, like, insanely good into Blue-Green Luffy. And NL, right? Anything that they play out, pretty much, you can kill, right? The only thing you can't kill is the 6 cost NL and the Senor Pinks. But this kills Frankies. This kills Reiju blockers after they block. This kills pretty much everything in Blue-Green Luffy that isn't named Buggy, Prisoner of Impel Down, or Boa. Like, this card is so strong, and it's just a plus 3k during a battle, right? So it's just really good. And then if you want to, you could even play... I don't know if it's still legal, actually. Hold on. Where's that? 2 cost, 2 cost. Where is it? Might not still be legal. I thought it was, though. It's a, no, it might be from 04. Yeah, I think it was in 04. But there was another one that you could do that gives you plus 2k for the turn, so it makes our leader a 7k blocker for the turn. But yeah, so there's like a lot of strong options you can use in this deck. And this is one that we made, keep in mind, we just threw stuff in here. This is without top end. So if you want, forgot. Best blue card. Go card positive? Sure, I'll take it. Yeah, Mr. 3 Galdino, low-key should probably be banned. Like, this card is insane. This card is so, like, it costs 4. It's a 5k body. It stops a whole character swing. You can swing with him first and then do it. Replaces itself +1 in your hand. Oh, and it has 1k counter. Like, where's the downside to this card? Like, this is a 4 cost. Like, look at this. This one goes +1 in hand, but you have to wait a whole turn to do it. It gets, and the only thing is it loses counter and it has 1k extra power. This one has counter, loses 1k power, replaces itself in hand, and it stops an attack. Like, this card is just insane, right? Like, we're always just using this. All right, and then let's double check the 2Ks because I don't think I have that many in here. We got 4, 8. What the Sigma? All right, what's another generically broken blue? What's another generically good, like 2K in blue or green? Because, like, you could do this to Shigi, but I don't think you really need it. I mean, you could. It's pretty good, but I don't think you need this, right? It's another good 2K. I'm trying to think of Nami, but Nami doesn't play any blue 2Ks. Maybe, hold on, let me see something here. Yeah, I think it's this, actually. So when the Kuzan starter deck comes out, you can actually play this, because it also costs 2 for some reason. It's a 2 cost, 3k character with 2k counter. On play, you can trash a card from your hand, place up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. So you bottom deck 2 of Goofy's dudes, or 2 of NL's dudes. This is so good. That's insane. And keep in mind, guys, like, this is like, you don't care about going card minus in this deck because your leader wants to be at, like, fewer cards in hand. This is so insane in this deck. All right, so let's trim it down a bit here, see if we can find something that looks more realistic. I don't think you need all of these. You want more 5 costs, actually, to play out off of this law. Actually, we have quite a few, right? We have these, and these are great. We have these, we have these. Okay, we don't need all of these. Maybe we don't need any of these. Keep one in for now. Luna's good. I think we'll go down one on these. Probably don't need all these Crocs either, do we? Nah. We don't need any of these, actually. These are kind of trash. I mean, this looks pretty consistent already. Like, we're drawing a ton of cards off of Cavendish, Galdino, and then our 2-cost package here. I don't know, guys. We gotta get rid of like 9 more cards. We don't even need that many laws, really, because we don't have a ton of... Okay, we got 4, 8, 12. We have 16 4 costs. So that's not that many to play out off of law. So maybe law is just like a 2-of, right? We also probably don't need the Croc, realistically, but I want to have 6k bodies to equip Dawn to. I don't know, this Croc is really strong, though. Alright, maybe we drop down some of these. And we probably don't need all of these. Okay, how many 2 costs do we have? Because this searches top 5, so we don't need that many. Okay, first check, we're going to look for Impel cards. So we got 4, 8. This can search itself, so 12. Or we'll call this 11, actually, because I won't count the 1. So 11, 12, 13. 13, so that's 17, 21, 25. So we have 25 Impel cards to search off of this, which isn't a ton. So maybe we just drop a couple Emporios here. You know what I mean? And then for 2 costs, we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Yeah, we have a ton of 2 costs. So this will probably never whiff. Oh my goodness, I forgot. Guys, I'm stupid. All right, the most broken 2 cost. We have to put this in. Is it rotated? That's crazy. Oh my goodness. Oh, dude, this deck would be peak with this sugar in it. It would be so good. It would be the greatest deck possibly ever. Dang it. Imagine. There's also a part of me that wants to put, like, actual top end in this. But I don't know where it would go. Because, like, right, obviously you just put in some Edwards and you call it a day. You know? What is this one? That's kind of good, actually. Ironically, it's a 5/6, so it matches a lot of the numbers that we like. We get to rest one of our opponent's characters at the cost of 5 or less. And KO one that's rested with the cost of 3 or less. If you have 2 or more rested characters, which we're going to have a lot of, right? Because we have Mr. 3s. We have these Rosies. These guys will be swinging, right? Like, there's a lot of cards that we can rest. Alright, I'm thinking we drop the Crocs. We don't really need Croc here. Maybe we do just put, like, 2 of these new gates in. To help us close. We don't need a ton because we have so much draw. Cut that. And then let's just look at blue cards, actually. Like blue top end. Because I'm thinking like Namis and stuff, but I don't know. This one would be funny. There's no way for us to like stack the top, but Kaido. That's terrible. Holy cow. Who made that? That one's kind of funny because you can bottom deck your own characters, but oh, this Luffy's actually kind of goated. Ooh. This Luffy's actually really good because it lets us keep restanding our leader if we want to. I mean, at that point, you're probably not trying to, though, right? Wait, why is this showing up? Aren't we hiding rotated? Does this have a manga? Why is this not rotated? Am I stupid? Chat, if anybody knows why Soga King is still showing up here despite me hiding rotated, let me know. Because this is an OP03 secret. Like, I don't know why this is here. Is this still legal? There's no way, right? I mean, you could run like some Mihawks. Oh, actually. So we have, you could run the 9-cost secret if you want, but I actually think this one's really good, right? Because we just get to set our Dawn as active. This one seems decent-ish. I mean, it's an 8K body, which everybody's trying to play right now, you know? How many bricks we got? 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24 bricks. Isn't too bad. Probably just start dropping a couple 2Ks, right? Drop like 2 smokers. Because it is situational. We could low-key drop all the Ivankovs, but I kind of want something to play on the Ford on turn that isn't... Actually, chat, we might not need something to play on the Ford on turn, because we can just keep playing these guys out, or we can play one of these two. Like, Cavendish is just hands down better for the Ford on. We definitely need big bodies now that I think about it, because we have so many chump blockers and like little guys. We need something to do once we stall into that late game. So I do think we probably need like these and some new gates. Yeah, and then these guys let you actually in the late game. See, though, that's what I'm saying. Like, this deck lost so much that if it had like one, if it either had sugar or, where's he at? Hold on. This guy, the original goat. If we still had either sugar or this card, I actually genuinely think this leader would have a decent shot right now. But we don't, right? Like, oh, this card is so good. Because even if Lucy's trying to, like, you know, gimp it or whatever, you have stuff like Rosinante to be able to protect it from being KO'd, right? You have leader to block for it. Like, you have options. Oh. Perchance, methinks Boa would be a good closer. I also realized that we kind of like Law because you can bounce one of your little guys to play out the Cavendishes. Maybe we have 2 Boas, 3 Mihawks, none of those. Right? We just drop these. Oh, what are we thinking? I'm at 58 cards. We just got to get rid of stuff. We need 4 of these. This is like way too good. No. So we cut those. Law, I think I want at a 4. Oh my goodness, wait. This is kind of good too, guys. Bro. So you keep a frozen thing frozen. Set all of your green characters to the cost of 5 or less active, which unfortunately is none of these ones. But you can set your Carrots and your Galdinos and your Jinbeis and even these guys if you rest them for whatever reason. You can set them back as active. Oh. Oh my goodness. Guys, that's kind of crazy. That is kind of crazy. You tell you what, we probably don't need these. Actually, realistically, we don't need these, but that like helps you filter, so. Oh, okay, chat, I need you guys to tell me right now, do we cut the 2 I Know You're Strongs or the 2 Slave Arrows? Which one are we getting rid of here? Because I'm going to have to cut one of them. Oh, we could also do Lon Beppos. Need help here. Also, is it worth it to run this Law? That's the real question. I think we can cut that. Let's see, we got 4, 6, 10, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 bricks still is a lot. I think we dropped this. Yeah. So drop that. That gets us to 50. Now the question is, where do we slip in this law here? Also, now that I think about it, we definitely need the Bonnie as well. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Bonnie. This one, right? Yeah, we need some of these. Probably like 2 of these. Cut one of these guys. And I really don't think we need Mihawk now that I think about it. Yeah, okay, wait a minute. Okay. Hear me out. Hear me out, right? This. Okay, if I can... There we go. Alright, guys. I'm not going to lie. This might be the worst cook I've ever done. Worst cook in the history of cooks possibly ever. We got Goofinante. Alright, this is potentially the worst list I've ever made. But, hear me out. I did something kind of similar in Red, Green, Luffy, Ace, and it kind of cooks. So, this might be okay. Because here's the idea, right? We start out early game, playing a bunch of little dudes, right? Doing our thing, drawing cards, staying even, blocking for characters, making this Rosinante. And then our late game is we start swapping them out for our bigger bodies here, right? With the Bonnie and the Carrots, the Cavendishes and the Mr. 3s. We swap them out with that with the Trafalgar Law blockers. We can block for them if we need to with our leader to keep them alive. And then late game, we slap down either this Law here or this Newgate. The Newgate will help block and keep us tanky, but this Law here will keep something frozen and restand these Carrots and Bonnies so we can both have them as blockers and use them as attackers. Not the Carrot, obviously. The Carrot's not a blocker, but you can swing them and then restand them. So you can keep them up as blockers. Seems kind of funny. Probably terrible, right? This probably just dies like every aggro deck out there, but, you know, could work. Alright, I think this is funny. Alright, guys, so I guess we'll save this one for next Taco Tuesday, and we'll try this out on the next Taco Tuesday. I'm actually really curious to see how this does. So, anyways, that will do it this time for the stream. Once again, if you like the stream, please feel free to let me know by hitting that thumbs up button down below to let me know that you liked it. And then you can hit the subscribe button while you're down there as well, because it helps me and my channel out a ton. And while you're down there, you can hit that notification bell right next to it. That will let you know anytime that we go live here with the chat again, or anytime I put a post or a video on the channel. You can hit the share button right there, that curvy arrow. Share this with your friends and family, anybody you want, to let them know what's going on with the channel as well. And last but not least, you can leave a chat anytime that I'm live, or comment on any of my videos, newest one, whichever one you want, and I will be able to respond to that and see what you're saying. But thank you guys so much for sticking with me for today, and for seeing the random cooks and also the deck discussions. And with that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys next week or